I don't talk a lot about equipment on this podcast, and I'm not going to do that today except for this. I just noticed these headphones hanging in my studio. I don't normally wear headphones, by the way. I do if I'm doing an interview, but I've got so much experience being on the mic. Monitoring myself in that way isn't as helpful as me being able to hear myself talk through bone conduction. That's a whole nother discussion too. Anyway, the headphones I've got, MDR 7506, they are by Sony. It is a standard studio headphone in the way that an SM58 is a standard microphone. If you're in a recording studio, if you're in a radio studio, you're going to see this 7506 headphone. You may have a pair or a similar pair. And the issue with these headphones, they sound great, but the cups on them, the headphone, I don't know what you call them, like the black thing that you put on your ears that's padded, it flakes, man. If you can get past that weird phase, it eventually all flakes off, and then it's fine. But for those of you who do not want to do that, you can buy for about $10 on Amazon a replacement part for these headphones. You take the old flaky ones off. These are made out of, I don't know, something that doesn't flake. Mine are red. Anyway, it's Big Podcast Playbook, the marketing podcast for podcasters. Beyond that, though, it's the podcast about podcasting. And I am finishing up in this episode a 6-part series about core skills that you must have if you want to have a big podcast. The first one, core on mic skills, what listeners will feel immediately. That's something to put into place right now. The second one, content and writing skills. That's what separates forgettable from bingeable. The third, production skills. What keeps you independent? What gives you options? The fourth, show management and booking. What keeps the machine running? The fifth, growth and marketability skills. Why opportunities come to you and how to make those opportunities come to you. And on this episode, personal sustainability skills. What keeps podcasters from quitting? I have been doing this a long time. Podcasting since 2005. I was doing radio before that, but really this run of radio since 2005. Do the math, over 20 years, I show up daily. Is it always easy? No. Would I like to have a day off? Sometimes. Am I more or less excited about podcasting and broadcasting, audio in general, and grateful to still be doing this? Yes, absolutely. So let's dig into this. These rarely get talked about, but they absolutely matter. I was in a recording studio today doing some voiceovers for advertising. I was working with a producer, and this is something that came up for me. This is absolutely something that you deal with on your podcast, and that is the ability to self-edit. You need to know when good enough is good enough. I was working with this guy. It's a national ad campaign, big client, the biggest of the big. I really wanted to deliver what he wanted. I was maybe kind of, I don't know, we got to get it out quickly, but I wanted to be able to deliver it. And I'm like an actor. Oh, what's my motivation? They hand you a script. It's got some words on it. And I don't know if you've ever seen a radio script, I guess, or any ad. I'm familiar with audio radio scripts, but the way these things are laid out is not necessarily how you're going to read them. They lay them out so whoever's typing them can kind of get an idea of what the length of the piece is. This was a 30-second promo, had a lot of words. And when we talk about what is good enough, it would be great if I could deliver this thing perfectly in the way he wanted it, in the time that was flawless, and he didn't have to edit. With that said, you're going to do a few takes. He's going to be able to, we call it comp, take the composite of what you've done, put something great together. He's going to modify the time so it comes out exactly at 30 seconds. And that's not necessarily 30 seconds for me, my part of it. There might be some music on the front end or the back or sound effects, stingers, that kind of thing. Anyway, I wanted to deliver what he wanted. And I told him at the end of it, did you get what you need? Yeah, I got it. I can keep going if you want to. I will stay there all day because I have that kind of obsession. Podcasters, guests, people who have been in the studio with me, they comment on that quite frequently, actually. I will go back and record something, especially if it's something that has legs. I'm getting ready to do the audiobook version of my upcoming book, which is called Big Podcast Launch Plan. It's the third in a trilogy. And man, these audiobooks where I know something's going to last for, I don't know, maybe 10 years before I re-record them, I really work hard on those. Let me give you an example of this. I really work hard on those. I would have said that again. I didn't like how I said that first. I'm hypercritical, hyper aware. And that is because I've been doing this for so long. I can hear the mistakes. I don't necessarily like them, but at the same time, I've got to get it out. If I worried about them that much, like I kind of am right now, overthinking it, I would never get anything out to you. Knowing when good enough is good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes you want the moment. The moment sometimes is going to be that flaw. You can't recreate it. Oh, let me ask that question again. No. Also, something that I've found is that when you go back and listen to it in the playback, what you want to re-record or what you do re-record maybe didn't need to be re-recorded. That first take is actually good. There's a very well-known story. I know that I've talked about it, but I'm going to tell it to you again. And that is about Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. They did something like 78 mixes of that song. Little thing here, little thing there. Change the snare on the fourth beat. I don't know exactly what changes they were making to do 78 mixes, but they ended up going with number 2. That's the one that you and I know. When you listen to Billie Jean, that was the second mix. A lot of times when I'm in a music session, that first recording, the first performance really, that's the one that you're going to go with because that's the one where somebody's really hot. They're thinking about it. They're not overthinking it maybe. You have a tendency to overthink things. I certainly do. And when I say this, by the way, I'm not going to go into this OCD type mode. That's not me. But you do start to analyze it. And the way it works for me is that I will say something like I said, whatever the sentence was a minute ago. And instead of focusing on my present sentence, the next sentences that I would have said after that, I'm thinking about the I sentence and how I should have said it. You just got to learn to let that go. If you do make a mistake, though, don't be afraid of going back, doing it. Go with it, you know? It's like dessert. You ever see people like, oh, I really shouldn't. And then they eat it. Oh, I really shouldn't. And they hate themselves for it. Just eat it, man. Eat it and enjoy it. Your voiceover, your podcast, it's the same thing. There's always the next day. This is what I say about podcasting every day. And when I talk about showing up every day, I do. It's called the Sausage Factory Podcast. If I'm not doing something on the air that day or doing something that I'm recording, I'm doing a Sausage Factory podcast. And that's me reading, improvising, and thinking on my feet. I'm in the studio every single day practicing these skills. I do it today and I do it every day because I don't have the excuse of, I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes, I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes, I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah, you're going to do it tomorrow because you do it every day. I probably sound very obsessive about this, don't I? All right, self-editing judgment. You do your version of that, knowing when good enough is good enough. Second thing, momentum management, creating systems that reduce friction. This is going to help you avoid burnout. I see podcasters have a release date, let's say every Monday. They know that they need to get the episode out by Monday. And that's going to mean maybe guest research right after the show is released on Monday. Tuesday, maybe a pre-interview, more research. Wednesday, pre-interview. Thursday, cut it. Friday, edit it. Do your post-production. Then you're ready for that Monday. Maybe you're working over the weekends like I do. It helps to have some kind of time management skills, momentum management, so you don't get into that, well, let me just skip this week, and then next week comes, I'm going to skip this week, and you get into a situation like I'm in right now, this episode, arguably behind schedule. With that said, I don't have a schedule for this podcast. It gets out when I get it out. And I'll tell you why, because I'm working on other shows that do have a schedule. I'm working on other projects that do have a schedule. I've got this book coming out that took me several years to write. When I say several years, 4 years maybe. It was actually in pre-order 4 years ago. Talk about overanalyzing. I looked at this thing. I said, man, pull it. Pull the plug. I'm going to redo this. I'm tearing it down. I'm starting it from scratch, and I'm building a better book. And I'm proud that I did that. Is it frustrating? Is it disappointing? Yeah, it's disappointing. But what would have been more disappointing, and I say this from experience, is when you rush a project, you get it out on time, you meet that deadline, and then a couple of weeks later, oh, man, I really wish that I had not released that to the world. I'm in a situation now with 2 podcasting books that have done very well under my belt, that I've got this, I guess we'll call it people waiting for the third one, people watching for the third one. That's pressure on me. But I'm also at a point, and this is something you might relate to with your podcast, you know better and you do better. Great work cannot be rushed. We're finding that balance. Like I talked about with being in the studio, cutting that ad. I've got to get that ad out. It needs to air, but you want it to be good. Eventually, you're going to start working faster, and that's where these systems come in, this momentum management, systems that reduce friction, being able to walk into a room and instantly be able to get into that mindset. There's no, I'm kind of not in the mood now. No, that's one of the things about broadcast radio or live streaming. If you've got a set schedule, you figure that out. That red light goes on, you go on. It doesn't matter that you fought traffic all the way to the studio, or it was raining, or your stomach is upset. When that red light goes on, you go on. I'm not telling you not to be human. Be human. Bring that into your podcasting, but people are counting on you to get that out. You have a system that reduces friction. You show up correctly. You get better at that as you go. Do the best you can. Sometimes the best you can is not as good as the best you could another day. You still do it. You still show up. Don't write it off. Don't say, I'll do it tomorrow. Fourth thing is feedback and feedback processing. You need to be able to filter useful criticism from noise. I cannot tell you how many people on YouTube, how many podcasters, how many book authors, how many musicians will get one piece of feedback and they're out. They're done. They are so sensitive that they walk away. You need to be able to adjust without losing your identity. This is another thing about feedback. I think feedback in general is good. If you start to pattern match and you're starting to hear the same type of feedback, I like this, I don't like this, and it can work either way. You want to be able to take that feedback, incorporate it into what you're doing, but not lose who you are. Let me give you a very modern example of this. ChatGPT. I see so many people asking ChatGPT for episode notes, for episode titles, for maybe even the title of your podcast. And ChatGPT, I think it wants you to like it. It's programmed that way. Oh, great idea, David. This is the most brilliant thing I've ever heard. Yeah, this is perfect. Yeah, go with it. It's good. Or it'll give you some stuff that maybe is a little bit weird because you don't have the prompt exactly right. And you're thinking, well, man, it's a computer. It should know. It seems weird to me, but I'm going to roll with this. You got to know who you are to be successful in podcasting. You got to know who you are to have something that people want to connect to. I call that being seated in yourself. And if we're going to go back to the music industry, one of the things that we saw in the 90s was bands from the 80s, they would change their sound because something else was hot. Hair metal was out, grunge was in. Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains. And you had those bands that I mentioned, Warrant, they did kind of a grungy album. Skid Row, grungy album. Motley Crue had some kind of weirder, grungy album with a different singer, not Vince Neil. I'm not saying you can't change, but if you're changing for likes and attention, and that's super easy to do these days when we can change something that night, put it out into the world and get those likes and attention right now, that's you or whomever going for clout, likes and attention, not going out and putting a message out there. If you've got a message out there, and this is what people talk about when they talk about you need to know your why, this stuff is a lot easier because you've got a lot of stuff to filter, not just criticism, but when it comes to keeping the machine going, filtering, does this content work for my podcast or does it not? Does this guest work for my podcast or does he or she not? Got to have your filter in place, man. So that's the third thing. Feedback processing, being able to filter criticism from noise, and also adjusting if you do make those adjustments without losing your identity. I mentioned that I've done this since 2005, the podcasting version, the radio version since the 90s. One thing I know about is adaptability. Radio is changing. We had broadcast radio. I remember hearing about cable radio in 1991. I was there, oh, cable radio, that sounds brilliant. All these channels in your home, can you imagine? Cable radio. I'm not limited to the 5 or 10 broadcast stations that I've got in town. I've got unlimited cable radio stations. And we had that kind of a streaming internet thing. There was cable radio attached to cable TV very shortly. Then we had satellite radio. Then we had internet radio. Now we've got DJ X on Spotify. You heard this guy?
Hey, what's going on? I'm Xavier. My friends call me X.
It's AI DJ. I thought I was going to like him. I don't. It's boring. Turns out what I like about DJs is that human connection, why people like podcasts as well. So we've seen that change. We've seen DJs change. We've seen voice tracking. Shows are not live anymore. You could do a 4-hour show in about 1 hour. That allows the same jock to do more shifts, do more stations. If you listen to SiriusXM, the 80s on 8 station, Mark Goodman, really most of the original MTV VJs, Alan Hunter. Well, you're going to hear them on other stations as well. Same genre, different spin on it. I was like, wait a minute. I thought I just heard Mark Goodman. You did, because it's voice tracked. It's not live. And that's adaptability. One of the things that we've seen in radio, we used to record a magnetic tape, if you recorded at all. You don't do that anymore. You used to edit with a razor blade. You don't do that anymore. You don't have to. Some people may. Thank God we don't. Thank God I don't. Wouldn't have 10 fingers left. You're probably already doing this without thinking about it, but you're going to have to do it more as you go along. Adaptability, things change. You want to be able to change things, change formats, change the way you do things without panicking. Also, read listener behavior and change to that. Adapt to how people are consuming audio content. At one time, broadcast radio. I talked about cable radio. That was the thing. Let's listen to the radio at home. A cable's attached to it, not a problem. We listen to the radio at home. Then what we did was we had podcasts that we would attach to a computer. And when you wanted to put it on a mobile device, an MP3 player, which mine could hold 30 minutes max. Can you imagine that? 30 minutes max. That's because we were putting music on it. I might put, 5 or 10 songs, depending on how long the songs are. When podcasting came along, maybe you could get an entire episode on that. Maybe half of an episode. It was all attached to your desktop computer. Then, this is the big game changer. Mobile downloads straight to your iPhone. You didn't have to have that mobile device anymore. You had it, and it was called your phone. You didn't have to attach that phone to your desktop computer and get your audio via a wired connection. Things are changing. You're probably changing with it more than you realize. But as you get older and continue to make podcasts, you're going to see more and more change. AI is a game changer now. I love it for certain things, don't like it for others. I think, as I mentioned about the AI DJ on Spotify, that we are always going to want the human connection. AI cannot replicate that. AI might know everything about a niche, a genre, a group of people, but it doesn't have the experiences that you have or that the people within that niche or that group of people have. It doesn't have all the memories you have that you might bring up when you read a listener letter or when you talk about a certain topic. Just on this episode, I've talked about different experiences that I've had. One of them today, cutting ads in the studio. I talked about a couple of music business stories. AI doesn't have that. AI can give you facts, but not experiences. That is how you are going to win against AI. Regarding these other things changing, I don't know. Some of them you're going to work with, some of them you're not going to like. But that's what happens when you stay with anything for a long period of time. And that's what this is about, personal sustainability. What keeps you going? What keeps you from quitting? Self-editing judgment, knowing when good enough is good enough, getting it out. Perfect is the enemy of good. Don't keep that pretty good podcast in the can just because it's not perfect. Momentum management, creating systems that reduce friction, doing what you can to avoid burnout cycles. Feedback processing, that's the third one. Filtering useful criticism from noise. Don't changing everything about what you do just because one person thinks it needs to be done differently. When you do adjust, adjusting without losing your identity. And the fourth and final one, adaptability. Things change. You want to be able to change formats without panicking. And not just formats, technology, learn new skills. Audacity 4, it's coming out, man. If you use Audacity, you're going to have to learn a new system. Not too new. Not like going to Pro Tools or Adobe Audition or Hindenburg, but it's going to be a new one. Are you ready for it? Or are you going to be one of these people, well, I'm still using Audacity too. Don't be afraid to upgrade. And on the flip side of that, when something does change, don't be the guy who thinks you have to have the latest and greatest thing. This mic I'm talking into, it's an Electro Voice RE20. It is a 50-year-old mic. Not this particular one, but the design, 50 years old. They have not made a better mic, in my opinion. Used by Rush Limbaugh. Terry Gross. Everybody who's anybody has used an RE20 mic. It is one of the 2 mics you're going to see in a radio studio. This and the SM7B. Also, not quite 50 years old, but pretty close to it. They have not improved on these mics so much that you do not see them. You don't have to upgrade everything. Read and listen behavior, not just downloads. Where are the listeners going? What are they doing to consume your content? What do they want from you? Can you deliver it? Maybe. If you want to talk more, I'm at Big Podcast AMP. That stands for Audio Monetization Program. AMP is how you spell it. And you can find it at bigpodcast.com/AMP. If you want more from me via this podcast, I got it for you. Get the entire package of the 6 things that you need to have a big podcast. That is all available to you in the feed, and you can find that at bigpodcast.com/subscribe, the way that people are consuming podcasts now. And also, if you're on a desktop machine, I got an RSS feed for you, so you can go old school, man. Get your podcast the way you used to via a wire connection, maybe even a dial-up. I got you. It's all at bigpodcast.com/subscribe. You can find the subscription options there. 1 click is all it takes to get every episode of this podcast, all 6 things in this series, and more is what I have coming up on Big Podcast Playbook. Did you forget already? bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Go there now, and I'll see you on the next episode.